no other movie star had ever looked, had become the biggest box office attraction in an industry that still had no idea what to do with or about his popularity. The biggest hit among the 5 nominees, The Graduate, had been turned down by every major studio and financed independently. Bonnie and Clyde had been financed by Warner Brothers, but loathed by Jack Warner, who rued the day he put even a small amount of his company's money into it. In the Heat of the Night was made because United Artists ran the numbers and realized the film could be produced so cheaply that it would never have to play in the South at all and might still break even. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was greenlit only because Columbia Pictures owed its producer-director, Stanley Kramer, a movie. Together, the 4 films cost about $10 million. The 5th picture, 20th Century Fox's Dr. Dolittle, cost more than twice that much to produce and promote as the other 4 combined. It was the only movie of the 5 that had been fueled by a studio's bottom-line goal to manufacture an immense popular hit, and the only one that flopped. The Los Angeles Times looked at the list of nominees and called it a battle of the dragons against the dragonflies. The dragons were Stanley Kramer and Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy and Rex Harrison, the makers of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and Dr. Dolittle, and what the paper termed the armies of graybeard technicians, who had been making movies their way since the dawn of the sound era. The dragonflies, nervous, rootless, hip, were Beatty and Hoffman, Faye Dunaway, Rod Steiger, Mike Nichols, Hal Ashby, Norman Jewison, and Arthur Penn, all newcomers, non-traditionalists, or outsiders. The divide was generational, but also aesthetic. These were people who were rejecting what movies had been in favor of what they could be, and the fight was unabating. In Hollywood, by the time the 1967 Best Picture nominees were made public, it was increasingly clear that something was dying and something was being created. But the transition between old and new is never elegant or seamless. The dragons couldn't quite believe that they were running out of firepower, and the dragonflies, still excited to have buzzed their way across the moat and through the palace gates, would have been very surprised to hear that they were about to achieve a great deal more than that. As iconic as the images of Bonnie and Clyde in their dance of death, or Mrs. Robinson interposing herself between Benjamin and the bedroom door, or Sidney Poitier demolishing Rod Steiger with the line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs," became, the second they reached screens, they were still anomalies in a world that had just made The Sound of Music the highest-grossing film in history. What paid studio bills in the mid-1960s were James Bond extravaganzas, John Wayne westerns, Elvis Presley quickies, Dean Martin action comedies, and a long-standing willingness on the part of moviegoers to suspend disbelief. Now, suddenly, people also wanted Blow Up and The Dirty Dozen and Clint Eastwood's Man Without a Name and Bob Dylan in Don't Look Back, a title that could have served as a rallying cry for a generation of moviegoers that had emerged faster and more forcefully than the studios could have imagined. The old and the new existed in uneasy proximity, eyeing each other across a red-carpeted aisle that was becoming easy to mistake for a battle line. A fight that began as a contest for a few small patches of Hollywood turf ended as the first shot in a revolution. All movies are gambles. Each one begins with a prayer that what seems like a brilliant idea to its writers and directors and producers and actors at the moment it is kindled will still have meaning after years of fights and compromises and reconceptions and struggles when it comes alive on a screen. The 5 movies up for Best Picture did have one thing in common. They had all been imagined for the first time many years earlier, in a world that bore little resemblance to the one in which they arrived in 1967. This is the story of what happened to those movies, to the hopes and ambitions of their creators, and to American filmmaking in the 5 years between their conception and their birth. Part 1. Chapter 1. One afternoon in the spring of 1963, Robert Benton went to the New Yorker Theater to see Francois Truffaut's Jules and Jim.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.